Yes, I did.
We'll go ahead and call the February Rutherford County Risk Management Committee into session. The chair will entertain a motion at this point to approve the minutes. Is there a motion? Have a motion. Is there a second? Second. And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda we have financials. Ms. Miller, Lois Miller, Risk Management Director, interim.
Call your attention to the exhibit for the medical expenses. If we look at the first block of the bar chart that you're looking at, we have a prior period year to date versus on the left-hand side of that same chart, current year to date. These are, like I said, prior year, so we only have 1 month of data in each of these. I'm sorry, am I not close enough? We only have 1 month of data in each of these, and so it's limited information. However, you can see that in the prior year we had $6.6 million in revenue versus $6 million roughly in expenses. And this year for January we had $7.2 million in revenue versus $5.7 million in expenses. I would caution you not to think that's a trend if 1 month isn't indicative, but nonetheless it looks good so far. If we look at the fiscal period year to date, which would be a 7/1 through 1/31 time period, the prior year we had $34.1 million in revenue and $39.2 million in expenses, and this year we have $38 million in revenue versus $42 million in expenses. Now these dollar amounts in the revenue columns do not include the 2 months, well, they include the 2 months that the Board of Ed doesn't pay because they're on a 10-month schedule. And so as the premiums keep coming in throughout the rest of the year, this should true up and look a lot better on the revenue side. If you look to the next page with all the numbers on it, in the second set of numbers, we'll go right into the calendar year revenue versus the expense comparison. And you can see there that the same numbers you saw on the prior page. We had $7.2 million in revenues and $5.7 million in expenditures. If you compare those to the same numbers directly above, I would call your attention to the fact that the revenues for the 2019 calendar year versus January's numbers from 2018 show an increase of 8% over last year. This is due mostly to an increase in enrollment of about 2%, coupled with a roughly 6% increase in rates, which was divided over all of the plans. And so that number makes good sense because it's 8% up and we can justify that. Over on the far side of that same row of numbers, you can see then that if we compare revenues to expenditures, we actually have about a $1.5 million surplus after just 1 month of data. If we go down to the fiscal year comparison, comparing 2018, 2019 to 2017, 2018, if you look at the January numbers, again, you see that same increase in premiums. So that's after the rate increase and the enrollment. And if we look at expenditures, we can see that across the time period, they're averaging close to about $6 million a month. If we look at it for the total year, again, $38 million in revenues versus $42 million in expenditures. Again, those should even out by quite a bit as the premiums, including the school board revenues, come into play through the rest of the year. Down at the bottom, you'll see we have under the medical enrollment, we have 6,098 people enrolled in January. Those are subscribers. If we look at the total enrollment, including spouses and children, we have about 12,845 members total enrolled in the plan with a contract size of 2.1. Generally, we would see a contract size of 2.3 to 2.4. That's more normal for a given population, but that is reflective of the fact that the spouses came off the plan, and so our contract size is slightly lower than you would expect for a normal plan. Overall, the rate increase for the plan was less than what would have been expected trend, which is about 6.5% for medical, 9% for pharmacy. We will be determining the rate needs in the next few months so that we can get a better picture of what we're kind of looking at for the next plan year from the employee perspective. Note that the grandfathered deductible plan, those rates this year went up 16%. It's a grandfathered plan, so no new people can enroll in it. In fact, we're trying to wean people out of that plan, and we dropped that by 60%, people enrolled. And what's the good news that comes out of that is they enrolled equally in both the deductible, the copay and the HRA plan. And so that shows an acceptance of those other types of plans by those people who've been in that deductible plan for so long. And you'll have to pardon me, I did not include the 266 exhibits. Dan is speaking to the statistics, but I didn't bring the financial exhibits, so that's, I'll just apologize because I have been away from it for a while.
You're okay.
I do have the information, though. Oh, you do have it? Okay, Dan, it got put in.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I was going, oh no, I don't have that. Okay, so if we look at the first chart, you'll see that the prior year versus the current year, and you're going through the data, and it's only good through January, but if you look at that prior year, you'll see the large decrease at the end of the prior year. That's an actuarial adjustment that's done at the end of the fiscal year. I would assume there's probably one similar to that coming this year, but we won't know until June. So that's the only thing odd in that, other than, we can see the way that the claims have increased, and there's not a real pattern to them. Workers' comp versus OJI costs. This is a very interesting chart in that the workers' comp, which we actually left that program many years ago, but there are still a few workers' comp claimants out there because they continue until the claim is completed. And so you can see that the big spike in October is a workers' comp claim, not an OJI claim, and that was driven by one claimant. We have 6 remaining, and we closed 2 recently, so we're down to 6 workers' comp claims that are still going on.
How many did you say? 6?
6, yes. And that's what I have for... Okay. So if we look at the fund performance, and I'll just call your attention to the current year, on average, the total revenues in are 90,000, and the expenses out are 103,000. So currently, just for this fiscal year, we're running in a slight deficit for this plan. So if we could get Dan to come up and do that, that's it for the financials.
Any questions so far? Seeing none? Is there a motion to accept the report? Got a motion and a second? And a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, next we have Mr. Dan Good, Safety Coordinator and Provider OSHA reporting. Mr. Good, you're recognized.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to report OSHA is a little bit different. They do their numbers by calendar year. So January is the first year for the reporting of OSHA. And
They're gonna beam you up.
so anyway, in the month of January, we had a total of 13 injuries requiring medical attention. You can see the breakout there, and of course that's what carries over for the frequency for the year to date. Of those 13, 8 of them are OSHA recordables. Of the 8, 6 had restricted days, 3 had lost time days, and 2 were others. The total incurred dollars for the 13 is presently at $18,290. As I remind you every time, those numbers are just tentative, what's thought would be to take to close out those claims at this time. If the claim closes early, that'll drop down. If it doesn't, it would increase, and it usually takes about a year for those claims to settle down. Next page, first graph you look at, this is comparing this year's injuries to the 2 previous years. You'll see that this year we're at 13. Last January we had 21, and the year before that we had 16. Basically, this year we've not had the slip, trips, and falls because of the weather. Last year we had a lot of snow in January, and that cost several injuries last year. Next page report is you look at the incurred dollars for the 3 years. This year we're at 18,000. Last year this time, because of, again, the weather and a couple of injuries, we were at 171,000 in the month of January. And the year before that, we were at 10,000. So we're kind of back in line after that peak for last year. The Board of Education had 7 claims, and the injuries incurred dollars are at 7,800. The County General had 6, and their incurred dollars are 10,490. And of the 6 for the county, they were spread across Paul's, Correctional Work Center, Solid Waste, the Ambulance Service, and the Sheriff's Department. Every year in the month of February through the end of April, we're required to post our OSHA 300A log in all the county buildings. And I didn't get this in last month's report because, again, we wasn't quite ready, but when it is posted in all the county buildings, I provided you a copy of last year's numbers here so you can actually see the report. And if you're out there at any of the county buildings, please look for it. It should be in all the school buildings, county offices. If it's not, and you're responsible for having that posted in your area, please give me a call and I'll be glad to get you a copy of it. Last page of your report. On February the 14th, we had Travelers in the county area. Travelers is the one that handles our excess carrier for our property casualty. What they do is they select a group of buildings within the county each year to come by and inspect those buildings to see, make sure they're doing their due diligence as far as how we're maintaining the buildings and everything. You'll notice here that they looked at 4 schools this past month in February: Laverne Middle School, Signal Middle School, Rock Springs Middle School, and Blackman Middle School. And then just below that, you'll notice where we had the areas of concentration that the inspector looked at: mechanical rooms, gymnasiums, auditoriums, and in fact, building roofs. The inspector went on every roof that he went to. And I was there with him when he went through that. He was very pleased with the condition of the roofs. He did have 4 recommendations you see here. One about the use of clean agent fire extinguishers in the computer server areas. That's being looked at by the Board of Education Maintenance Department to determine the feasibility of that. Removing excess material from the computer server room and combustible material from utility rooms. That goes back to the school custodians, school principals. They're working on doing that for the 4 schools. And in Blackman Middle School, they'd done some work recently where they'd actually punched a hole through the wall and ran some conduit through the wall. And what they didn't restore the fire protection in the wall. So they've had to come back and put some fire sealant in there, and that's been completed as of this week. That's all I have at this time. If there's any questions.
Any questions? I conclude your report, Mr. Goode.
Yes.
Is there a motion to accept the report? Have a motion? Second? And a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Goode.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Wellness Coordinator, Mr. Chapin. Smart Steps Wellness Program. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the month of February, our year-to-date completions for the Motivate Me program that we implemented January 1st. Currently, we're sitting at 476 annual physicals completed. Biometric screenings, we're running at about 816. Health assessments, we're at 325. Mammograms, we're at 379. OBGYN screenings, 523. Colon cancer screenings, 152. Cervical cancer screenings, 515. Prostate exam screenings, 130. Flu shot completions are 1,657 to date. And completions to date for all requirements for the incentive program are 1,497. Now, you'll take note, with the different options and several different ways to make points that we added this year, they're slowly piling up, and as individuals get their 3 points, we'll see the completions across the board continue. Also, this data started 10/1 of last year, so a lot of that data got picked up earlier in the year and brought forward. So a lot of our completions were already completed prior to the January 1st deadline as well. Currently, our current wellness program is Cruise to Lose. We have about 60 participants. I'm proud to say we have about a 4-pound average weight loss as of right now for all participants that are actively engaged. So we're seeing a lot of success. We're having a lot of happy lifestyle changes and things like that, so it's going really well in that regard. Our next upcoming lifestyle management class will be March 7th at 5 p.m. It will be build your own workout. Basically, we'll have Hillary come down and give us the tools to put together our own workouts, whether we work in office environments or out on highway or sheriff's department or wherever we work, and we can put together our own fitness. The Life Services EAP program, February 19th was the mental health first aid. It's online, on demand, available to anyone. The March 19th will be the interpersonal communication, social skills for success, and that will be available on demand. And then the upcoming April 16th will be understanding resilience, available online. Also, this year we'll be starting in March the Wellness on Wheels campaign again. It's basically just educating everyone on the 2019 incentive campaign. We do a lot of health education components as well, so I'll start reaching out to leadership throughout Board of Education, County General. Just that way we can come in, we can answer any questions, we can provide information, and have some fun while we're doing it too. So be looking for some communications coming out of the Risk Management Office and myself just as we move forward into March. The program spotlight for this month was the Healthy Babies, Healthy Pregnancies program. Again, all this information is available through your MyCigna accounts, also through the MyCigna app. But just a brief overview, if you're currently pregnant or your partner, or you're thinking of becoming pregnant, this is a program available to you. It actually assigns a nurse to you at the beginning of the first trimester, and then you basically are guided through the entire process. Any questions, it can help you guide through care, it can help you make decisions. It has a neat app that goes with it now, and you can actually watch your baby grow from the size of a pea to a pear to a pineapple, all that fun stuff that comes with pregnancy apps. It's really neat though, and again, that's available through MyCigna. But if you have any questions about any of the programs that we offer or have, please have your staff just reach out to me, and I can do my best to help out however I can. And that'll conclude everything I have.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any questions
Any questions?
concerning the wellness program? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept that report. Have a motion. Is there a second? Got a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Next, we're at the item number 5, MedPoint report. Ms. McNair.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start today, as some of you recall from our last meeting, we discussed the transition to our new electronic medical record at the MedPoint clinics back in November. And with that transition, we were finding some of the previous non-face-to-face encounters that we were reporting on in this presentation, we were not able to report on in the new electronic medical record, the EPIC system. I've worked with my reporting team, and we have been able to capture a few of those. Unfortunately, we're not able to capture the same amount and everything that we were capturing in the old system, so it will not be an accurate comparison. So due to that, we have kind of revamped our presentation. It's very similar in look, but you will notice some changes this month due to those changes that we're seeing in the reporting. If you'll turn to the first page there, you only are going to see the 2019 as we continue to roll, being as we were not in the EPIC system for 2018, it would not be that accurate comparison on the clinic visit numbers. And so as we advance throughout the year, you'll consider or continue to see a trend from month to month in the EPIC system. So we saw 1,133 visits in the month of January. The next slide there is our wellness visits. Our wellness coordinator saw 41 visits. 32 of those were follow-up visits with 9 initial visits for the wellness coordinator. The registered dietitian saw a total of 20 visits in January, with 18 of those being follow-ups and 2 initial visits. This next slide is the per employee per month summary. It was pointed out after the last meeting that we update our employee counts on a yearly basis. But it was brought to my attention, you guys do a lot of fluctuation throughout the year, specifically at the Board of Ed, I think during the summer. And so we worked with Ms. Griffey in Ms. Miller's office and went back and did a month-to-month count to give you a more accurate per employee per month for 2018. And we will continue that into 2019, getting that number from her every month to be a more accurate per employee per month with those fluctuations that you guys see in the county. So for January, we had a total operating cost of $213,697 with an employee count of 6,159 that were eligible on, or that were on the medical plan and eligible for the clinics, and that turned out to be a $35 per employee per month calculation. On the next page, you'll see our incoming calls there at MedPoint. So in January, we had 2,135 incoming calls with an incoming call average per open day of 97 incoming calls. Any questions?
No questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion to accept the report. Got a motion? Is there a second? And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 under other business, the intent to bid for the FSA for 1/1/2020 date. I do have a question on that.
Okay.
Is that the date that the bids will be
Effective.
let or effective?
They're effective.
Okay,
Right.
so-
The advertisement goes out actually tomorrow on March 1st.
Okay.
And then the bid will be available to vendors on the 6th, I believe, of March.
And bids will be received.
On the 3rd of April, no later than 4 p.m. in the mayor's office.
Okay. On 4/3, bids are due.
Pardon?
April 3rd, bids
Yes.
are due.
Yes. And the actual calendar of when questions are due and intent to bid questions, and then the due date of the RFP will be included in the advertisement and on the information on the website when it's let.
Any questions on that? Notice is given. Okay, item number 6B, preparations for the 7/1/2019 effective date to add the county commissioners, highway commissioners, and Board of Education members to the county benefits.
I just wanted for people to be aware that this would not be effective until 7/1/2019 because there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done in order to make our systems update for the new enrollment class, to change our SPDs for eligibility, and just to set up all the backroom systems that have to tie to each other in order to collect the data and get them into the system. So it takes a time lag to do that, and we've started the process, but then this particular new enrollment class, it won't be effective until the beginning of the fiscal year.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I've got more or less probably a statement than a question. At the end of the meeting in January, I was under the impression, and I feel some of the other ones were, that we were going to get this information back so that we can make some suggestions if this was actually going to go through. I was very disappointed, and I'm saying that as a county employee, that this ended up on the steering committee agenda that night for this month of February, and that this went through very quickly, probably unbeknownst to the majority of our county employees. I'm going to go on record as saying, yes, I probably made the motion, and I know I voted to take the spouses off to save money. And then this come up to add the commissioners and school board and road board. They're all commissioners and they're all elected. We done that without the even thinking of what we done to our employees of taking the spouses off. It was brought up in the steering meeting, it was brought up in the budget meeting, and I watched the county commission meeting saying that this improvement, or not improvement, the addition of adding these commissioners, 21 county commissioners, 7 road board, and 7 school board, wouldn't have an effect on our plan because they were paying full premium. You're right, they would pay full premium, but they go in the pot with everybody else. Their claim goes in the pot with everybody else's. And heaven forbid, I hope nobody has to claim, but we all have claims at one point in time. The fact of the matter is, yes, they would be paying full premium. But when we sit down in April, we got to count them lives that we're going to be covered when we come up with the premiums. And it's just not right. And I commend the commissioners who voted against it. There was one that abstained from voting for or against it. And I do commend Commissioner Allen for pointing out on 2 or 3 different occasions in these meetings the PR nightmare. Well, it should be, because the employees have always worked for the county and give their best. I'm speaking for the ones I got 65 right now. They work hard, and we told them, no, we take your spouses off. But then, very abruptly, run through commission when, in the minutes from January, we were bringing this item back for discussion after some more research. I'm just going on record saying it was wrong. It is a done deal now because the commissioners have voted on it. And yes, I said if the commissioner's going to get it, my road board members need it too. I mean, you're going to give to one, you need to give to them all. But I'm going on record saying that I expected this back this month for the discussion, but instead it passed full commission 2 Thursday nights ago. And as a county employee, I think it was wrong. Now I'm going to swing it out there, and I know it'll fall dead, but I'll do it on my own. Since it's been done, and I've said it since it started, if we're going to let the commissioners on, we need to put the spouses on. And like I said, I'm going to put it out there, and if it falls dead, it's done, but I've done my part. I make a motion, we put the spouses back on the health plan.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Let me ask a question. Are the spouses not allowed to be on?
Only, right. The rationale behind a move like that, and I'll be honest, I wasn't here when the move was made, but the rationale behind a move like that is because the county invests a lot of money in their employees, and other employers, if your spouse is working for their employer, then it's felt in the industry that the company that employs the person should make the investment in their benefit plan. And so therefore, if they have access to benefits through their employer, then they should be able to do that rather than being on the county plan. And it's very commonplace in.
Well, that's true, Ms. Miller. I was kicked off my wife's plan. I'd been on it since we'd been married. We've been married 35 years, and I was kicked off last January when I went on to this, because as a legislator, it was available to me to purchase it through the state insurance, and so she works for AT&T, and they told me that I had to come off. That's, whether it's private or public sector, it's just a way of containing costs today. Now, let me ask this question. If the spouse is not employed, they're still able to come on, but they have to pay the premium, correct?
Well, they pay a portion of the premium, because if the spouse is not employed, they're eligible for the plan, and they're set up in the rate structure as employee plus spouse or employee plus children or
Correct.
employee plus family. So they only pay a portion of the premium. The county picks up the remainder.
Okay, so your motion is to,
The motion is to allow all spouses on the plan. We do have spouses on it that are not available insurance anywhere else. The motion is to put the spouses on that we kicked off that had insurance somewhere else. So for the whole nutshell is to allow all spouses on the plan.
and the county to pay that?
Yes, the county pays the match, and if they don't have the insurance available to them now, it would be the same as it was prior to 2016 when we took them off. Basically, it's to redo that.
Sure. Commissioner?
Yeah, I think what Ms. Hickerson is saying is we would just be assuming the claims risk again. And so that, I remember when we made this decision, that's what we looked at, was the claims experience. And we were spending more money in claims on spouses than we were on employees. And so as we were trying to calculate a way to protect the plan and, to keep the cost down for our employees, we made that decision and said, if a spouse has coverage or has the opportunity to take coverage elsewhere, then they are not eligible to be on our plan. And so from what Ms. Hickerson is saying is that we would do away with that regulation and would just allow any spouse to participate in the plan. And I don't remember the exact numbers. We would need to see what those were, but it was a pretty big gap between the two. The only other thing I would say is, to her point, and you made me think of this with the example that you just gave, we have one commissioner who voted for this. His wife is a school teacher. And so he was very adamant to say, if I can buy into the plan as a commissioner, then does that mean that I can't be on her family plan? Because right now he's covered, has the county insurance, but he's under her family plan. That was Commissioner Rather.
Didn't we clarify that, Ms. Miller?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we clarified that.
Right. Well, but what we told him is that he wouldn't be forced off of her insurance, and because we had a member class versus
Right.
an employee
That's
class.
exactly.
That was the distinction. But again, to Ms. Hickerson's point, that's not treating the employees the same as you're treating this class of members. Because if you were forced off the state plan, or your wife's because you had eligibility to the state plan, following that logic and following our rule for other employees, he would be forced off of his wife's plan and would be forced to buy his own plan if this is offered to him. So I just want to put that out there, that is a distinction, and she's right. From that standpoint, we are treating the member group different than the employee group. But I will also say, I think it was a wise and prudent and difficult and an important decision that we made when we made the decision to move spouses off the plan. It was not radical to the industry. That is a widely accepted practice in the industry for all the reasons we've just discussed. So I still endorse that logic. I did not endorse allowing folks to buy into the plan. I'll continue with that stance. I'm struggling with the other, so I'll just say that.
Okay. Other discussion? Yes, sir.
I think during the process, I remember, was it 600 spouses that were initially taken off? I think that's what they said. The problem with it was there was no way to know where those spouses fit as far as how much they cost. It could have been the healthier spouses because they were working and had jobs, insurance available to them, that were the ones taken off. So it wouldn't have had as much of an impact had you taken the spouses that spent the most money. And I know it was discussed, but it was never quantified. We never knew really whether or not it helped or not. I never saw the numbers that it actually helped. There was no way to predict what spouses would be taken out of the population as far as how expensive they were. So we really don't know that it saved any money, because the high dollar spouses that, you know, that cost the most money are probably still on the plan, and the ones that were really not having any claims may have been the ones taken off, so you just lost their extra premium. So there was really no way to know whether it helped or not. And there are some people, and I know people, that their spouses were kicked off, and it cost them quite a bit more money to cover their spouse, because a lot of these plans can cost people, you know, $600-700 a month for just a single person, because they don't offer good benefits like the county does. So it would have saved it. You know, it cost them extra money. I think there should have been a better solution than just kicking spouses off. I think there should have been offering people for premium assistance to go to their other plans. I know there are some companies that offer their employees incentives to take their insurance somewhere else, and that would have probably been a better solution, because I don't know that it actually saved. Anecdotally, it saved money, but I don't know that it did. I've never seen the numbers. It's never been presented that there's a reduction in the cost, because we talked about that the spouses cost the most money, but how much do they cost now versus after the passage of that change in the provision?
Well, I wasn't here at the time when that was done, but those numbers can be crunched and can come back with once you have the data, the carrier should be able to put those numbers together and come back with some type of recommendation. Lisa.
From our view, the 30,000 view, we could tell in our budgets we were saving money. Now, how many and which ones, no, but in our overall budget in the general fund.
The funds y'all budget for probably $1 million, very close to it. In the school's budget, I was pleasantly surprised. It wound up being in the $5 million range, where we would have had to have budgeted more money. We went into it blind, not knowing how many would come off, what plans people would wind up with, but I had, I think, over 4 million I'm sorry, I had over...
Yeah, just hold it closer. You'll be all right.
Okay. My total savings was about 5 million. Over 4 million went to ending fund balance. We did an estimate of how many would go off, but I still had to, we tried to err on the conservative side, and I had over 4 million in the general purpose school fund, cafeteria fund, and our federal projects go to fund balance. So, and we also had a lower rate of increase that we ran through the budget that year, at least 5 percentage points lower, wasn't it, Lisa? I think you're right. Yeah. So that aggregate view that Lisa was talking about, it was substantial for us at the school board, and it was substantial for the rest of the county government. If we want to change it or whatever, but
It'll be a budgetary impact.
yes, a strong budgetary impact.
So about 4 million, 5 million for the schools, and did that include county general, Lisa? What was the savings, Lisa?
7 million in this year's budget.
What was the savings from county general?
Million.
About $1 million.
About $1 million. And the other point that, I'm not saying yay or nay, I have no vote, but just coming back to the point, we said, it sounds awful when we say we kicked the spouses off. It was if the spouse's employer had insurance available, they should go. I just pose this out. Is it the county's responsibility to provide insurance for these private businesses for their employees? which is what we're saying is if you have spouses who have it, we're going to let you come on because the county now is going to take that on that responsibility.
It's not our responsibility to provide the employees insurance.
They're
It's
our
a practical
employees.
decision to address retention and attracting employees. It has nothing to do with some moral obligation. So I mean, when you take away benefits, it's not but for fluffy reasons to give it to them. It's for practical reasons, and it did have an impact on people's view of working for Rutherford County.
Some of my employees had to
Yes.
find insurance somewhere else because it was cheaper to go, for example, Farm Bureau, State Farm, somewhere like that, as to pick up their employer's insurance. Now, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the commission's benefits that we have of the health insurance, the vacation, the holiday time. I get that, and thank you very much for that. But you take what my guys do, drive a truck, bush hog, run the paving crew. We make considerably less than what the private sector, the companies out there that you see working on the interstate paving, or the ones around here, I can name them, but I'm not. My guys make on the hour quite a bit less. But they say, okay, we give you some benefits. You know, you get holiday pay, you get some time off. But the benefit of the spouse on the or them on the insurance period. But there was a hardship put on them because some of them did have to go to, they couldn't afford to go to the employers because of the cost. They had to go find, like I said, at some outside insurance companies. And it all boils down to, if we're creating another group for the commissioners, albeit road board, school board, and the full county commission, we should treat our employees the same way and allow them, the ones that want to come back, some could possibly have made the best decision they had. We don't know that, but we need to give them the option of coming back on since we've opened it up to others.
Sonia.
The only thing I wanted to make sure that everybody still remembered is, one, that the practice would be the same for commissioners as it would be for the employees if their spouse had that access to insurance. The other part is that the commissioner will be paying the full premium, not a subsidized portion of a premium, which is significantly more, and I don't think a lot of people know that it's significantly more. So while, yes, it did open it up, it was different than how our employees are treated by giving the subsidized premium. So I just wanted to make sure everybody remembered that in the discussion.
Good point.
If I'm remembering correctly, you have to work a certain amount of hours to obtain insurance, correct? You can't be part-time. So how are we going to track the hours? I know commissioners are very busy, but how are we tracking their hours? More, if they're working, because we clock in and out. So how are we tracking that?
We would not be, their member class would be by virtue of the fact that they're an elected official.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. What is the size of the budget for the county and the school board? Because you said we had a decrease in cost of about $5 million. That's $5 million of?
Right now, this year.
Jeff.
This year, just the GPS budget, 390, probably 20 and 20, about 430 million.
Well, I was going to say, when you look at the fund, and when you think about whenever we set rates and we're setting the target, it's about $60 to $70 million coming into this plan, whether it's coming from school board or the county or the highway. In total, it's between 60 and 70 million. Yes.
So you're talking about a 1% difference. So I'm one of those people whose spouses got kicked off. And my spouse does not work for a corporation. He works for the public library system. They don't have great insurance. and it's not county insurance. And it put a significant strain on my family. It would be great if he could go back on my insurance. I would like that.
Is it an ACA compliant plan? Affordable care compliant plan? Because one of the points that I made back when we did this issue, I wanted the requirement to be that the spouse had access to an ACA compliant plan, because I was aware of some who were in employers that were small enough they were under that threshold and they could face costs like that. That went nowhere when we were looking at the issue. Is that something we would be willing to look at as a way that if your folks in the highway department, if they have a spouse for whom no ACA compliant plan is available, that spouse could come back on?
Commissioner McAdoo.
Just a couple of things. First of all, Lisa, what about our 80-20 that we're trying to reach? Where are we at on that now?
82?
Okay, during that time, we went through in the red, and we were looking just to keep this program alive. But I myself, I don't have no problem if you bring spouses back. If they pay the same premium that those commissioners and everybody else is going to pay, it's fine with me. We could turn this thing into a very profitable situation, because we are not giving the commissioners or elected officials nothing. Not really. When you look at it, the premium that we're talking about for them is not no deal at all. And I think I asked a question, and you remember, how many is going to participate? I keep hearing we got 21 commissioners, 7 road boards, 7 school board, but all those are not going to participate. We couldn't even get a number of the commission night, could we, ma'am?
The number we got was 0.
That's right. So this is just something that is offered to elected officials. And I think the reason we were looking at it, because we were looking at committee members and we were looking at elected officials, how hard it is to get elected officials, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. But if you put like a little package out there, maybe you would encourage some participation more so than we got now.
Yes, ma'am.
No, we are also facing a teacher shortage in Rutherford County. We're being very competitive. We're also facing a teacher shortage in Rutherford County. We are very competitive with Williamson County, Davidson County, but this is a way to attract more quality teachers to the county too, if teachers can keep their spouses on the insurance as well. It's just an additional benefit that draws in qualified candidates.
Question's been called. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Yeah, we need a roll call.
That's pretty close. I'm going to call for a roll call. Jeff?
Could we have about a 5-minute recess?
Sure. We'll stand in recess. 5 minutes. I'll go ahead and call the committee out of recess, and I'm going to rule that the chair erred, and on the question being called, I should have called for a vote on calling for the question. Because the question had been called, and then we need a vote on whether or not to call for the question. So I'm going to ask by voice vote. All in favor of calling the question, signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Now back to the original motion as to adding the spouses back on. I'm going to make a recommendation before we vote that in talking with some of the carriers in the background, that they would like to have at least until next month to scrub the numbers to see what direction we need to go and come back next month before we hurry into this, because if we vote it out here today, it's going to budget and then to the full commission. Give the carrier the opportunity to go in and look at the numbers and get back with Ms. Miller, and then come with a recommendation from there. If you want to proceed on the motion as presented, I'm willing to do that, but through the recess is what we discovered we can have some more definitive information to vote on correctly. Yes, sir.
If you would, bring information back to as exactly to what the commission voted on as it related to spouses and compensation as it related to the amount of money that it might cost, once again, a commissioner to participate in that plan.
Okay. That's discussion on the motion to do that, but we're going to have to act first on the motion that's before us. And if so, verbally, without call and roll, I'm going to do this with the information given to the committee, voice vote, whether or not to send it forward out of this committee, and then if I'll rule based on what I hear as far as a voice vote. So all of those in favor of sending it forward to the Budget Committee as the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? I'm gonna rule in favor of the no. We will wait 30 days and bring it back after the companies have been able to give us proper information before we go forward. Anything else to come before us in other business?
I would just like to reassure Ms. Hickerson and all the other employees who are probably watching this. I feel like I will give my word. I feel like the other commissioners will give their word. I feel like you would give yours, is that we will not let anything else on this particular topic, and especially as it relates to spouses, we will not let anything else advance or die. We won't take any other action or votes until this committee is able to look at these numbers and we're able to talk about it. I feel like they felt misled about what was going to happen with the commission vote. And I don't think we did anything wrong. I think procedurally it followed through the committee process like it was permitted to do so. But I feel like this committee felt misled, and I don't want them to leave here today feeling misled on this particular topic.
Well, I hope everybody understands that. Commissioner McIndoe.
On another note, on steering committee, we had the school board come before us requesting some issues, requesting some changes. And it's one thing that I've been concerned about it, because we meet at 1 o'clock, which it doesn't bother me. But we have a lot of employees that I am getting secondhand information from. In other words, they have issues they bring up or tell somebody. I guess it gets here, and I guess maybe it don't. But we may want to look at another time to meet where we can have our county employees involved in these meetings, especially this insurance meeting, because I hear different things, and I don't know if it's true or not, coming from different avenues. But I wish we would consider looking at a meeting time that would allow our county employees to come forward and present their ideas or whatever they like to present before this committee.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. I'll check with Vicki downstairs, and we'll look at the calendar. I think there was always, of course, I didn't know when insurance met anyway when we got here, so see if there's another opportunity. I think there was some reason. I'm sure somebody can tell me why we meet at this time, but yeah. So noted, and we'll take that information back and see if there's a better time that we can meet. It might be better in the morning or sometime in the afternoon. Jeff, you want to meet before you leave?
That?
Yes, sir, you're good.
And just my vote, and I'm probably speaking for some of the others who voted no, it is, we need more time, better numbers. There's some questions on coverage before we're ready to vote for this. I did not, and I doubt the others voted against it. But we need more time before we can make a decision to undo a change that was so major and had a big financial impact on us at the same time.
Well, so noted, Jeff, and certainly appreciate that, and I'll concur with what was said previously. Ms. Allen, to those who voted in the affirmative, we won't move forward until we have this information on this issue. It concerns all the employees. This was not some way to keep you all from addressing this issue, but I think all employees need to be represented fairly, and we need to have proper information so not only you all can make a positive or negative recommendation to the full commission, because they are the governing body who sets the tax rate for all citizens. We'll go from here, and I look forward to seeing you back this next month. Any other business to come for us? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.